So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this lunch talk of EIT Digital. Today we have one of our doctoral school students, Talayeh Aledavood, who is studying in Aalto Computer Science department and also in our doctoral school in EIT Digital, and she's going to talk about our digital life cycles or daily cycles in the digital world, and that's all I know so far. Eager to know more.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, well, yes, I'm going to talk about our digital daily rhythms, and thank you very much for having me here. This is a work that I have been doing with my PhD advisor, Jari Saramaki, and our collaborators in different countries, really, in the UK, Spain, Denmark, maybe that's it. Yeah. Yes. So, do you know who is this gentleman on the left side? Does anybody know him or recognize him?
King of France.
But he's using iPhone, so he cannot be King of France.
Well, don't think about that for now. Just by looking at his face, do you recognize him?
Isaac Newton.
Quite close, but still not yet. Anyone else? No? Okay, so this is Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher. And, well, this, I think you recognize, it's me. And if this is Immanuel Kant and this is me, what do you think this axis here is representing?
Time.
That is a good guess.
Gender.
That could also be correct, but not quite.
Weight.
Also, but no.
Amount of data.
Well, that is also a very good guess, but no. So I'm going to read you a passage from the German news website Deutsche Welle, and maybe after that you can tell me what you think about this about this axis. Immanuel Kant got up at 5 a.m. every morning, went to his university at 7 a.m., worked from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on his books, took a walk at 3:30 p.m., 7 times up and down the Lindenallee in Königsberg, never more, never less. He went to bed at 10 p.m. sharp. So, and I can add some extra information that for me, being here at 12 o'clock giving this talk, it was a little bit like, I wish it was in the afternoon still.
So,
like,
disciplined, undisciplined.
Yeah, kind of. So both that, but also like what we call morningness, eveningness. Like he went to bed at 10 p.m. and woke up at 5. So this
He is like my father.
Yeah, so this is what we call pretty much everything, or Immanuel Kant, that's like this tendency to go to bed early and waking up early. Whereas on the other hand, me, I go to bed very late and not always at the same time, and wake up late, also not always at the same time. And what I do during the day, it's nothing close to this. I don't have the schedule like this. But we know that humans are animals of habit. So I'm also one of those animals. So I also have some habits. I have some routines. And we have this day-night cycle, these circadian rhythms. And these rhythms, it also is like, it's in our bodies. We have these pacemakers in our bodies. So many of our physiology, our heart rate, for example, our body temperature follows this daily rhythms, these circadian rhythms. Also, our activities show daily rhythms. Okay, thinking again about that picture I showed you about me and Emmanuel, there's something quite not very precise about this picture. First of all, I should tell you what this IT measure is. So, like a few days ago, we had this discussion in our group that some of them are here, so they remember that it's really cool to have a number or constant named after you. So I thought, okay, this is a very good occasion. I can come up with I can call something after myself. So basically, this IT measure is Talayeh measure. And but there is something quite not precise about this picture, and Yusuf somehow mentioned it. It's that Emmanuel didn't actually have a mobile phone. Well, he lived much longer, like too long ago to have one of those. But the correct thing would be that I have it in my hand. I have one of these things. I have it everywhere. I do a lot of things on this phone. First of all, I wake up in the morning. I put turn off the alarm, go back to sleep. Then I wake up. I check my emails. I do stuff. I talk on my phone. I interact and communicate. I do everything on my phone. But is this just me? Or no, it's all of us. It's you, it's you, it's you. It's every single one of us. We have one of these devices, and we use them when we talk, we use them when we walk, we use them even in the shower. So I was looking, when I was preparing this talk, I was looking for images of people using their mobile phone, and I thought it would be funny to find these, like maybe a cartoon of somebody using their phone in the shower. And when I was searching, I found this image, and this image was actually a product that they sell. It's these pouches that you can put your phone in it and take it to the shower for you. So this shows how mobile phones are really everywhere and how much people really need them, that they have even made one of those. But if everybody has these phones, and if they're everywhere, and if we are leaving traces, digital traces, using our phones, now, why should only NSA use this data? Why us researchers, why shouldn't we use them? So this picture you see here, this laser doesn't really work on this TV, but this one, I can just show it to you. This one here, this is not just random picture from the internet. This is a picture from one of our collaborators, Sune Lehmann at Technical University of Denmark. These are 1,000 mobile phones here that 2 years ago they gave them to every single incoming students at DTU, their university, and they started tracking their activity, everything about them, and their mobile phone usage, and many, many things about them. Of course, all the students agreed to get one of these phones for free and then be kind of tracked. So now we also like to do some of these work on this cool data, and we are interested in communication and activity patterns. We want to find temporal patterns of populations and systems, and also temporal patterns of individuals. And to do that, we have used multiple data sets. I call it our data, but to be honest, this is more like we wish this was our data, but it's really not. This is just some data sets that we have kind of had access to, because this kind of data is very sensitive, as you might guess. There are a lot of privacy issues, so you have to make sure that the privacy of users is not compromised if you're using this data. So none of these data sets is actually collected by us, but we have been able to work on them. The first one, it comes from a mobile phone company in a European country. We cannot disclose the name of this country, but it's several million users, about a year of data. We have calls and texts in addition to socio-demographic data about these users, their postal codes of where they live. So it's really like a very big and nice data set. The second one, this data is collected by some of our collaborators in the UK. It's only 24 individuals, so they have handed them these phones, and they have tracked them over 18 months. But this data is very rich because all these students they were high school students when they started. They were about to finish high school when they started data collection. First of all, we know a lot about their lives because they filled out like different questionnaires at different points in time. We know a lot about their social contacts. For example, their what they call emotional closeness, how emotionally you feel close to your social contacts, and many other things. We also know that, for example, some of these students, after a couple of months, they finished high school and they moved to another city to study. Some started working. So we know all these sorts of things. The third data set is a data set of emails in one university campus. So like all the emails that people in that university have sent for several weeks and about 2,500 users. Again, we don't know the country of this time. We really don't know what the country is. The fourth one is the so-called reality mining dataset, which was collected at MIT and with collaboration actually with some people in Helsinki. So they gave Nokia phones to about 100 users, the faculty and students of MIT Media Lab. And they collected call text data in addition to some surveys, and that was several months. And this was back in 2005, I think. So this was one of the first studies of this kind. And then the fifth one is the one that I already showed you, the picture of the phones, the 1,000 phones. So this one is very rich. It has call, text, screen on, off, for example. Like each time the screen of the phone turns on, they have that data, and each time it turns off. They have personality tests of these users, social demographic data, Facebook usage, their grades, their Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. So basically they can track their movement, they can do everything with this. So these are the data that we're using to study what we want. So what is this then? I told you about reality mining. This RM is reality mining, is that MIT 100 MIT people. Town, call, and text, well, this is the same town, comes from that European country that I told you that we have millions of users, but here we have picked data only coming from one town in that country. And then this is emails in that university campus. And so the y-axis is the counts of like the overall counts, and the data is aggregated for 8 weeks, and for all of the cases it's aggregated for 8 weeks, and we can see like first of all we can see that clear temporal patterns emerge here. Like you can see days of the week, like very nicely. Or then the second thing, which is very interesting here, is that each of these systems is behaving differently. For example, the emails, which is mostly like work emails, people don't have much activity in weekends. But for call and text, it might be that the activity becomes slightly different in the weekends, but still it's there. And something else about the same population, if for example we compare call and text, this is, so here is around midnight, this is the time axis. So here is around the midnight first day, and we see that calls, there is not so much of them, but text there is a lot. And this is already telling us something about these, if you think about it, you cannot call others at any hour of the day. It wouldn't be nice if you call someone and wake them up, but whereas for text, it's different. You can take someone even if you think that they're sleeping. So, looking at these temporal patterns, we can learn a lot about these systems and the mechanisms behind them and the populations. Next, we have, so same data that I showed you previously, but this is now just for one day of the week. We have picked the third day of the week. We are not sure exactly what is the third day of the week in all these data sets, because for example, for the emails, we don't know what country it's coming from. Just, it might be, if it's, for example, if it's from an Arab country, the weekend would be Thursday and Friday, not Saturday and Sunday, but still we can see where the weekend is in the data. So we pick the third day of the week. And just putting all this together, like fraction of calls that you have at each hour of the day, you see how interesting this is. Again, for example, for this green one, the emails, you see that there is like little activity in the later hours of the day, but like a lot of activity in the morning. Or for example, this town, the call and text, you see this going down like in the afternoon, which is probably the siesta time. So if you try to like go into details of each of these plots, you can learn a lot about different cultural things and like different channels of communication, how different they are from one another. Next, we here again same data, but we try to look at individual activity rather than the whole population. So in each of these plots, the black curve is the average of all users, over all users in that data set. So the black, this is like reality mining calls, all the three of them, so the black curve is the same in these three. But A, B, and C are three different people. A, B, and C in this are also not the same as here. So this data comes from 12 different people in 4 different data sets. And when it's red, it shows that users' activity is lower than the average activity of the population in those hours. And when it's green, it's higher. So we see there is a lot of variation. Like this is the average, but this user, for example, has very low activity here, very high here. The other one like this. The other one is like kind of the opposite of this one. So people are truly different in how they are. And if we could look, like if we look at this data more carefully, we see that there are people like me. I'm not the only one, as you might guess. And there are people like Immanuel Kant. So there are all sorts of people out there. Next, we go look more carefully into activity patterns of individuals. Here we have, again, call data, but this comes from that data set that I told you that is 24 people, but 18 months, and we know a lot about them. So this comes from there. This is just one individual. And each of these red curves here is one time interval, and we have divided the 18 months into 3 6-month time intervals, and the black curve is still the average. So the idea here is that to see if somebody has a certain type of pattern, does these patterns persist in time? If you're a morning person, do you remain a morning person, or like, if some of these people have moved to another city or have started a new life because they've started work or they've started university, do they completely change their behavior? Well, it turns out that your patterns like persist a lot. These, as you see, these green parts, they mostly remain green on, like for both of, all the 3 data time intervals in these early hours, and then for the later hours. And like all the 3 time intervals, this person is clearly below the average. And so we have looked at this, of course, for all the individuals and for different channels of communication. This is text and this is calls. And so every time these 2 belong to the same person, these 2 same person, like this. And so text of that person, calls of that person. And again, black is the average curve over all individuals, over all time intervals, and each of these red ones is one of the time intervals. And we see several things here. First of all, we see that, yeah, it looks like that these patterns really persist in time for text, for calls, for different individuals. Like a morning person remains a morning person, evening person remains, even like throughout the day, these patterns tend to persist. So if you now, for example, you call a lot right after lunch, you tend to do this apparently also in 1 year from now. Like that is your time of calling people. But this is not necessarily the same thing. For some people have similar call and text activity, but some not. Like this person has clearly different patterns for calling and for texting, whereas for some other people these patterns are kind of similar. So this is very interesting to see all these variations between individuals. So what did we learn here? First of all, that populations have distinct temporal patterns, and individuals have distinct and persistent temporal patterns. And this is like a nice result, because this then can be used in many cases. Some of the applications, for example, if we know that these patterns persist for different individuals, then we start thinking that what can disturb these patterns? What are the things which makes these patterns not to persist anymore? And one of the things which comes to my mind, and is actually true, researchers have shown this, that like some mental disorders can make these rhythms to start to be perturbed, and then you don't behave the same. And this like opens up a lot of new doors, and like how you can use these daily patterns. So going back to this axis that I showed you in the beginning, after seeing all these daily rhythms, it looks like that like people's behaviors cannot really be only explained by somebody wakes up early in the morning and goes to bed early, and somebody the opposite. There is much more to people's rhythms. And so now we have two axes instead of one. And can you guess what these two axes are now? Well, you have all the hints here. This is again Immanuel Kant, another picture of him, again me. You have some flags and
different cultures?
Yeah, very good. So one is different cultures are different, but in what manner are they different? So what is this and what is this?
Finnish and German guys are morning persons, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you and maybe Italians and this thing?
Yes. So that's true. So this axis, what I meant to be is this one. Is the morningness, eveningness. So we all know, well, you know better than me, that all Finns go to bed at 10 and they wake up at 5 in the morning, isn't that so? So usually when I come to work, all my Finnish colleagues, they're having their coffee, like after lunch coffee. Well, this is, of course, there is some joke to this. This is not completely true, but to some extent. And Germans, some of them, I think they might wake up not always very early. Maybe there is some variation there, but they're very regular, aren't they? Like they're famous for being like that. But then there are people like Mozart. Like if you look at what he said, he says, I often go on writing until 1 and I'm up again at 6. So 1 to 6, he sleeps like how much? 5 hours every night? So is he a morning person or evening person? Like he goes to bed very late, but he also wakes up very early. So it looks like that there is really much more to this than just being a morning person or an evening person. And there is all these regularities, like how much regular you are. Like if you look at different chunks of time, like how much. So to be honest, I don't exactly know what these axes are. I don't know it myself either. But this is something we're trying to find out now, and this is what we're working right now. That how can you quantify these cultural differences? How can you quantify these individual differences when it comes to these rhythms? Like who sits here, who sits there? How can you somehow also put the length of your sleep somehow? How can that come into play? Or for example, like the way you're active during the day. How can that come into play? Or how much you behave similarly if you look at you 1 month from now. So not all people are similar. So these are all the things that now we are looking into and we're hoping to understand better. If you have also any suggestions on what these axes might be or how we can like better quantify people's rhythm, I would be very glad to hear those. And yes, and here is the list of the publications we have related to this work. Thank you.
One question I have got a link to, and this is one what I mentioned already in the morning in one discussion, that I have a link to this Watson, IBM Watson page. You just register there, and they have like a limit of 100,000 or million rows of data and 100 columns or something, and you can put that then in, and then the Watson comes with the answer that what is the relationship within this data. So have you tried what Watson says about this? Maybe it can dig out some other features there than morningness or morning person or evening person, or and that, because one thing that comes to my mind is that in this time series modeling, if now you have like a more visually compared these things, but maybe if you take the obvious time series away, you can start to see some other derivatives or other modes there that detect something. One example is that a Finnish company, I don't remember its name, but had a motion sensor accelerometer in wrist, and was able to predict the heart attack based on the daily activity or day-night activity changes of a person. So maybe you can even detect the heart attack with this data as well, that how your communication or activity during night, for example, increases or something. But so maybe my question is that, are there any other exciting things to be determined from this kind of data?
So this is a very good point that you mentioned. So first about the first part, the Watson part.
Yeah.
So as I said in one of the slides, these data are very sensitive.
Yeah. So don't send them to IBM.
Yes. So we would definitely not. I mean, we cannot use Watson to work on this data. That's one thing. So there is maybe a lot of knowledge in different parts of the world or with like different companies, but you cannot always combine these because of different concerns. That is one thing. And one point about like looking visually at these rhythms. So here I tried not to go very much into technical details of how we have done this, but so our methods are not just by
looking.
That is like one other point. So I thought maybe it's better if I just like show the visual part, and if somebody is interested, they can like dig more into this. But about the third point you mentioned, this is very true that there is a lot of applications for example, the heart thing that you said.
Or wrist accelerometer. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now I have one of those.
Yep.
This is also I was given this wristband so my data can be collected for research. So now it's very true that the wristband can tell you a lot more. Maybe not about your communication, but it can tell you a lot about your mobility rhythms, your sleep, and much maybe more accurate than a mobile phone can tell you. And we're definitely looking into that too. We, through one of our collaborators, DTU, we are trying to establish a collaboration with Sony, and this is wristband from Sony, and they have this research lab in Sweden where they work on this data, and they want us to help them make sense of these wristband data.
Other question?
Yeah, thanks. That's a very interesting area itself. So thanks for your presentation. I'm interested in how much you actually have information of the people's overall communication patterns, because I think for the data which you have, since it trace digital communication patterns, we don't have non-digital communication patterns. So do you have done some kinds of qualitative followings of, for example, these 24 people you've been looking at for 18 months, or?
So by non-digital, do you mean, for example, face-to-face
Yeah,
interaction?
for example,
Yeah. So for the 24 people, this is like a part of those questionnaires. In this work, we haven't really looked into that, but in some previous work that has been done with this data, they have looked at it, and they have seen that really face-to-face interaction, it really correlates very strongly with your digital communication. And but here we haven't used that data, and with the DTU data, that I didn't show any results on using those data, but they also, what they do is using Bluetooth and by finding out people's locations, at least for those students who are within the data set, they can tell whether they have face-to-face interaction. They don't have to say it, but because their phones are next to each other, they know that these people are having some sort of interaction. So they are extracting that information from that data as well, and they're planning to look into that too.
Yes, going back to NSA, so do you know what kind of research are they doing similar kind of profiling of people? So can this be, for instance, recognizing potential problems for the society?
Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what they do, but we can guess, right? In the end, the thing is, people are very regular, and even me, I gave myself as an example of an irregular person, but in the end, you sleep at some hours and you go to certain places, you always sleep, most of the time you sleep at home. So, but even there have been different studies, not by, NSA has probably done it too, but by researchers who have shown that you are very unique in your mobility patterns. So just by having a couple of data points about you, then we can predict where you're going to be there next, what you're going to do. And if people start deviating from these patterns, especially, for example, if you have their web history, for example, if they're starting to do some strange activity, it's very easy to tell. So it's just a matter of how much data you have, I guess. And if NSA has a lot, they know a lot. And probably they know better than we do about what we're going to do tomorrow.
So can you distinguish Al-Qaeda or Falun Gong or some other members?
I personally cannot, but I'm sure NSA can. So, yeah. In the end, those people have rhythms too, and those people have certain activities, and even for I mean, even if you're a terrorist, your routine sometimes deviate because you're up to something, and if you have enough data, you can.
And of those mental diseases, do you have any reference material? How does depression or schizophrenia or whatever, does it appear in the data?
So this is now recently there has been a lot of work being done on this field. It's a very hot topic, and it's definitely also one of my main interests. And so the idea is that as part of the mobility of EIT Digital School, I'm going to next visit Harvard School of Public Health, and there I'm going to look into these kind of data, like rhythms of people with mental disorders.
Please check your medication. Short message from your doctor. Okay, good. Thank you. This was a very interesting presentation, and shows that even though you would have a lot of data, you wouldn't need to know what to do with it, and to find mine some phenomena out of that. So great work.
Thank you.